It's been a long time since I've made a video showcasing how I edit videos. In fact, it was so long ago, it wasn't even on this YouTube channel. Didn't use OBS to record, and was a giant mess because I didn't prepare for it at all. Today's approach is slightly different. If you've ever been looking into how to make some simple videos, whether that be for strat tutorials, highlights, retiming speedruns, or anything else, this video is hopefully something to help kickstart you in that direction. We'll be going over not only some basic tips and tricks for editing, but also how some basic scripts and something like AutoHotKey can speed up your workflow. This video at its core is about efficiency and how saving time in the edit sort of is like a speedrun, maybe? Anyway, let's get into it, I guess. Just like I should get into how I can tell you about the fact that if you click on the link in the description to my bot's twitch.tv channel, you can watch me use my scripts live when I edit videos or something. I don't know. This is a weirdly put plug. I'm sorry. Originally in the script it was for the Patreon, but it felt weird to do that like 3 videos in a row. So here's something different. But alright, I have no idea how long this one is going to be. This video is very likely going to stretch on for a while. So let's just get into it. It should really be noted that if you're really only after a quick edit or just a quick retime of a speed run or something like that, then this video is probably going to go too in depth, and a lot of this stuff is likely not at all relevant to your use case. And I would instead recommend that you maybe check out an older video of mine on this channel that goes over how you can retime your speedruns in something like DaVinci Resolve. So unless you just want to learn something new, maybe check out that, but otherwise, let's get cracking. So in the essence of keeping this as compact as we can, we are going to ignore the process of scripting, recording a voiceover, and organizing files, especially that last one, since I imagine most of you are going to ignore it anyway. So we're going to jump straight into our NLE, or nonlinear editor, of choice. For me, that is Adobe Premiere. That's what I use and what I personally work in. But I should be able to draw some parallels to DaVinci Resolve, as that is one of the best free editors out there and is highly recommended by a ton of people. Also, we have a little input display in the bottom left corner. It might look a little bit confusing at first, but if we open up something like Notepad and I just write in the word OBS, you should see how the letters continue to be pushed across to the right. But if I do like a hotkey or something like that, it will still appear as a hotkey. This will be important later, but just thought I should bring it up to explain how that works, as it can look a little bit funky. So, when you open up Premiere Pro, you are usually, unless you've turned it off, presented with this screen, which is nice and lovely. I mostly use it just to quickly switch to old projects, but for this instance, we're going to start a new project. We're going to name it the name of the video's edit smiley face. And we would make sure it's in the right location. So for us, it's in a random Premiere folder, because this doesn't ultimately matter. Everything on this screen can pretty much just look like this. It doesn't matter too much. Scratch disks, you would usually just leave it as same as project. And then ingest settings is where we are going to find our first handy bit of information. So the reason this is important is if you tick this box and you change this to create proxies, what that means is every time you drag a video file into Adobe Premiere, it is automatically going to open another program called Media Encoder and render out a proxy. Now, you might not know what a proxy is. A proxy, in relation to video editing, is generally a lower resolution, lower quality file that you use to edit with, so that your timeline performance and computer performance can keep up with the edit, especially once you start adding effects and stuff, but then get ignored when you choose to go render out the video in the end. But there is a very important distinction that you need to make here. I highly, highly, highly recommend against using a H.264 proxy. And the reason for that is because H.264 files are incredibly compressed. Chances are, if you're dragging a video into Premiere, it's already a H.264 file. More than not, it is very likely going to be. And the reason that they play back so bad within editors and stuff like that is because your computer has to be constantly, more or less, decrypting every single frame. Well, okay, technically it's not every single frame. Compression in videos is a very complicated field, but think of it as effectively your computer has to reconstruct most frames in a H.264 file. So, to avoid this, we are going to pick something called Cineform. I would assume ProRes would also work for the reasons that I'm about to explain. Maybe DNxHR as well. I'm not entirely sure about those, but they're VR ones anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But the reason we pick Cineform is because Cineform is a uncompressed video format, which means that your computer doesn't have to do any extra work to read an individual frame. It just sees the frame, it's just there. Now, the drawback to this is that the file size that you are going to get out of this proxy will be enormous compared to your original file. So if you don't have a lot of storage, don't use proxies. They are helpful. They can help speed up your workflow. They are not magic. There are drawbacks, and you need to understand them. But in our case, I have the storage, so I'm going to create proxies. And we create a Cineform low-res proxy. And for my destination, I usually like to create a new folder. So we'll just go to the folder that we're in and call it Proxies. And this is because, as I just said, they are generally massive. So it's usually very smart, I guess, to go back and delete them later once you're finished up with an edit. So that's all said and done, we can just hit OK. Once you're presented with this screen, which will very likely look completely different for anybody that edits, this is just the way that I have it set up so that stream can usually see what I'm doing. There's not a whole lot going on. So let's drag on in something, shall we? So you'll see I've dragged a video file in, and instantly Media Encoder will open up. And it will instantly start rendering out this proxy file. This is not it. This is something else. It's going to take a bit. There we go. That's what we're after. So because this is a massive file, this is going to actually take forever. I should probably pick a different video that isn't going to be so long. We're going to drag in this tiny little file instead. This will open up instantly here, and we'll instantly begin rendering. My frames in OBS are just dying, of course. All right, so now that that's done, let me show you how useful proxies are. So this is our raw file. This is what it will look like out of the box. Well, what this file would look like out of the box anyway. And this is about what scrubbing performance looks like. You can see it's not incredible. It jumps around quite a lot. This is only a 2-minute file, by the way. So it's not awesome. If I slowly scrub, it's sort of better. As it can kind of keep up, but as soon as I start doing large sweeps, it drops out pretty quick. So, let us turn on proxies. You will instantly notice the quality of this video died. Just look at my face, for example. So, that's because it's a lower res, but watch this. This is our timeline performance now. So as you can imagine, this is an incredible benefit. You're wasting less time waiting for a video to load, and things are just generally smoother. That is our benefit to proxies. But, of course, it wouldn't be fair if I didn't show the drawbacks. So, our drawback is the fact that the original file for this came in at around 265 meg, and the proxy file is 1.69 gigabytes. So there's that. That's over 10 times the file size. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can do about that, as it is uncompressed. It is going to be huge. That is just how video files work. But timeline performance is really cool, so you do love to see that. Let's get into the meat of how exactly we can make this process of editing more efficient and spend less time doing meaningless tasks instead of actually working on the edit. The first is something you probably already know. If you've ever worked in any software really, you're probably well aware of keyboard shortcuts. When working in software like this, keyboard shortcuts are what save you the most time out of anything. Actually, if you include AutoHotKey scripts, that's probably not true anymore, but that's a niche use, so we probably won't include that in that statement. Take, for example, these two videos of me cutting a track on the timeline. I could either move my mouse to the razor tool, click it, cut where I think there should be a cut, right click on the track, and then clear or ripple delete. Or what I could do is press the keybind for the razor tool. Cut where I think there should be a cut, click my hotkey for the selection tool, click again, and then do a hotkey for the ripple delete, which, if you don't know what a ripple delete does, it just moves everything past your edit to your playhead, which is quite useful. Or, if you thought that was faster, what about finding your cut point and then pressing, in this case, W on the keyboard to do pretty much exactly what we just did. How many button presses did we just save? You just saved like 3 extra steps. W in this case is basically just a keyboard shortcut within Premiere to cut your clip from either end of the track to the playhead. So W is from the end and Q is from the beginning. And it will, of course, function similar to a ripple delete, where it will bring the rest of the track forward. Another super useful keybind is the shortcut to split the selected track at the playhead, which I have set to S, which more or less renders the razor tool completely redundant. That alone is another pretty big time save. By the way, if you have multiple tracks on top of each other and you want to cut all of them instead of just the selected one, hold Shift and then press S. Same goes for the razor tool, press Shift and then click and it will do everything. When it comes to keyboard shortcuts, I personally find putting all of the most important stuff within reach of just my left hand to be the most efficient for me. Anything I use a lot is within reach of this hand. I can access most tools, cutting or splitting the track, most of my hotkeys, shortcuts, ripple deleting, etc., all with just my left hand. This is an incredibly efficient way to save time in the long run, as anytime I have to move my right hand off of my mouse to press a button, I'm losing quite a little bit of time there, and that stacks up. Over a day's worth of editing, it becomes minutes. To show some similarities between Premiere Pro and Resolve, let's go over how we can make some of the functionality that I've showed off within Premiere available to us within Resolve. So first, what we have at our disposal is a nice handy little script that I've created that ports over a whole bunch of functionality from those Premiere scripts that I use into Resolve. So if you're taking a look at the code, it kind of looks like a giant mess, but really if you just read through the comments, it kind of just explains what everything is doing. And basically, this section here is just to show that functionality that exists within Premiere also exists within Resolve. Most of these you could easily just rebind to certain keys within Resolve, particularly these 3, quite simply. But, you know, I just wanted to show that the capability of splitting exists. The blade tool is the same as the razor tool within Premiere, that exists. So not only can we just replace those keyboard shortcuts quite simply, we of course also have access to the scripts that I created. So there's the one to change the zoom that I have set up, moving on the x-axis, moving on the y-axis, and I believe I have rotation set as well. And then of course the click functionality also exists here too, which is really cool. So the way that they work within Resolve, I have them set to move the mouse cursor to this part here to click on video, so that even if you're over here in the audio tab and you press 1, it will just set you back to where you need to be. I made the conscious effort to go through and do that, because otherwise it would be quite awkward if you were in a different tab and that functionality didn't work the way you were expecting it to. Also at our disposal is the ability to flip horizontally and vertically, which is cool. That's just a nice handy little button on the video effects in Resolve, which is actually way better than how I have to do it in Premiere. I also have my scale adjustments, which I have bound to Control 1, Control 2, and Control 3. These will just zoom in to a certain amount. And so far, that's all I've got. Hopefully over time, as I build out my Premiere scripts, I can update this Resolve script as well. But if you've got anything you'd like to add, I'd love to see it. Obviously, I could add different sliders for each one of these settings, but personally, I don't really use anything like this, so it's not really something that I need all too much. I couldn't find a way to boost the volume of a track by a certain amount. I couldn't find a way within Resolve to do that, like I do have with Premiere. Premiere has the gain
options. I believe I wrote here. It only lets you go to preset values. The best way in Resolve is to just set a keyboard shortcut in the audio section to increase, decrease audio by 1/3 dB. If I say clip, and then you can go audio, and then there are keyboard shortcuts here that you can boost by 1 or 3 dB. So that's probably your best bet for Resolve and boosting audio. I don't think Resolve has a gain option similar to how Premiere does, so guess that's the best that we have there. To create proxies, I believe this is the thing that you would use, generate optimized media. That seems like it would be the smartest way to go about doing things. Yep, that definitely looks like a proxy. Where that proxy lives, wouldn't have a clue. How to turn it off, wouldn't have a clue. I'm sure there's a way somewhere, but that is currently outside of my knowledge of Resolve.
And speaking of keyboard shortcuts, all NLEs are bound to have a whole plethora of shortcuts that you can mess around with and would take up an entire video all of itself to explain. Honestly, I don't even know what all of them do within Premiere. Most of them don't really fit the workflow that I do. But there's something else I want to talk about that helps me just as much as keyboard shortcuts, that has quite a lot more flexibility than a simple keyboard shortcut does. Because while keyboard shortcuts are incredibly useful and can save a lot of time, as we've demonstrated, they can't do everything. And that's where a little tool known as AutoHotKey can help fill in some of those gaps. AutoHotKey is a program that allows you to write scripts to do an insane amount of things. In combination with your editor of choice, you can string together some pretty elaborate things to save an insane amount of time. Within Premiere Pro, for example, if you've ever used it before, you're probably aware of the fact that the only way to move the playhead, that's this vertical blue line, is to either grab it and drag it, or to come all the way up here to this lined section and click anywhere to move the playhead. Doing it this way is incredibly laggy for some reason, as you can see. The video works fine, but the actual UI is quite unresponsive. But with AutoHotKey, you can make it so that anytime you press the right mouse button, or any button of your choice for that matter, the playhead will miraculously move along with you. Now you'll see it is quite a little bit delayed because of the way that it works, which we'll go into in just a second. But overall, this is very, very efficient. If my mouse is over here, instead of me having to come back and grab the playhead and then drag it, or come up here and click and drag, I can just right click wherever my mouse is and I'm good to go. The way it's working, by the way, ignore all this stuff. This is just it defining colors and stuff because of the fact that it's a right click. You know, think about what you do with right clicks, right? You're trying to menu and stuff like that. It's basically just saying, like, if this is the timeline, then do this stuff, right? If you change it to a button, then you don't really need all that. This is the code that you need. But because I use right click, it's basically saying, you know, if it's the timeline, then the right button is pressed. Begin a loop to send a backslash, which in Premiere, I have set to the move playhead to cursor. And then it will do that every 16 milliseconds. So that's why it was a little bit delayed. And then it's just saying if the right button is released, finish, pretty much. That's how we get this miraculous function. This is I know this seems redundant and stupid and like it doesn't really matter. You can just move the mouse, Tom. Honestly, this saves so much time. If you're in the middle of an edit, you know, you're doing things, you're like moving tracks around, you've got like things everywhere, you know, like the last thing you want to do is come up here and like, you just want to go, you know. Another script that I use is to make one of the buttons on my mouse swap to the hand tool, artificially click, so that it's like I'm dragging, and then will just let me move along the timeline. And then when I release, it will automatically swap back to my selection tool and let me get on with what I was doing. This is so incredible. Instead of me having to manually press H, click, drag, then let go, press V and go about my day, I just press one mouse button and it just does it for me. Or you could, with the press of a button, have your mouse warp to a very specific pixel coordinate. press a certain thing, in this case, the motion tab. Input a very specific string of keystrokes, and wow, would you look at that, I'm all of a sudden punched in, or wow, would you look at that, I'm not punched in, or wow, I'm punched in even more. Or I press a button and wow, I can zoom in wherever I want, or I press one button and wow, I can automatically drag on my timeline, or I can press one button and wow, I can move on the X-axis, or one button and wow on the Y-axis, or one button and wow, the rotation. Do you see where I'm going? Or, those same buttons, by the way, I can just tap and everything will get reset. That's incredible to me. This functionality, by the way, so if I click the rotate button, instead of holding it, I just press, it'll reset the rotation. If I press the Y-axis one, it will reset the Y-axis. If I press the X-axis, it will reset the X-axis. And if I press the scale, of course, it'll reset the scale. That's an insane amount of time that you are saving. This alone is allowing you to skip having to manually move your mouse down, clicking and dragging along, finding the perfect thing, then coming back and going and then go, oh, I don't really like that, coming back and then clicking and then typing 100. And this stuff, when you're doing it constantly in an edit, and in the case of a highlight video, I am doing this stuff constantly. Having hotkey set up, especially for punch ins, you'll notice I have this very specific punch in, and that's because they're both hotkeyed with one num button. In fact, it's currently not even going through its full functionality because it appears like I may have overridden the color F5. There we go. That's how that's supposed to function. I've been messing around with a lot of my keybinds lately, so a lot of these colored labels that I have set up in Premiere have been accidentally getting rewritten. But basically, the way I have it set is so that when I punch in, it will automatically change the color to red, so that in the edit, I know that that track has been punched in, because I have a second separate camera source that's higher quality that I can replace with this. Now, before you think I'm rambling and I'm insane, I will admit, some of the scripts that I use, not necessarily the ones that I just showed you, but some of the other ones that I have are definitely easier to use because I have a Stream Deck. So I don't have to remember all these button combinations to do these fancy things. But you can also just use your keyboard. If you're willing to give up something like your numpad, or if you don't have one, buy a cheap one. They cost like 20 bucks or 10 bucks if you're in a country that isn't getting ripped off with its currency. Speaking of keyboards though, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Tom, actually, my keyboard has macro functionality built into it, so why wouldn't I just use that? Well, the short answer is that it's nowhere near as powerful, nor as fast. Not only is AutoHotKey generally much faster than the software bundled with your keyboard, it's also much more powerful. For example, the Stream Deck has the ability to do macros, and they're great if they're single use. But as soon as you need to do anything in a row, you start running into problems. Between every input on the Stream Deck is an inherent delay. You can go in and tweak it in the registry to be a little bit faster, but it's still anywhere from 100 to 500 milliseconds, which, you know, doesn't sound that bad in of itself, but if you're doing something multiple times in a day, those 500 milliseconds quickly turn into multiple seconds that you're just leaving on the table for no reason. And on top of this, it's also probably a lot easier to throw together a couple of quick scripts in AutoHotKey than it is to make a mess in most keyboard softwares. For example, the software for my Corsair keyboard has the ability to move your mouse in predetermined ways, but my god, it's a mess. If you want something to poke your nose around into, in regards to scripts, by the way, I will have the scripts that I use up on my GitHub so that any of you can take a gander at what I'm talking about. Keep in mind, though, that a lot of it is tailored to not only my screen, so basically anything pixel coordinate related isn't gonna make any sense for your computer, but a lot of the scripts that I use are pulled from F keys that you don't even have on a keyboard. So you'll either have to change the script, or you'll have to activate it with something like a Stream Deck, or you'll have to use your keyboard software to remap keys to those F keys. That could work too. But I wouldn't intend on you stealing a lot of the stuff that I have just raw and using it that way. I would recommend matching it to your needs Now, you may be sitting here and you may be thinking to yourself that I've kind of just lost my mind, that I'm going nuts over like 2 seconds of time saved on an input. And while, like I said earlier, if you're only editing one video, then never touching an editing software again, this stuff likely won't matter at all. If you're like me and every second day you're in Premiere working on something, every second saved is an increase in efficiency. An increase in efficiency means I'm getting videos made faster, wasting less time, putting less strain on my wrists and my hands. You may remember, if you've been a subscriber of the channel for a while, that I took a break earlier in the year because I was having wrist troubles. Wasting less time means allowing me to move on to other projects faster. It allows me to work on other things related to the stream instead of working on videos, as well as just letting me finish a video faster so I can relax. Before I started using AutoHotKey, I used to just use my Stream Deck for a few things related to editing. You know, I would open the gain setting, make it go up, go up a maximum amount of times so I would know I was at the top. You know, then I would make it go down, come over, press 2, hit enter, and, well, if you watch this, I'm boosting my gain by 2 dB. You want to see me do that on a Stream Deck? This is what it looks like on a Stream Deck. Now, don't get me wrong. This by itself is still probably better than you pressing the G button, moving both of your hands over, typing in a certain amount of numbers or whatever, then hitting enter. Right? But you can't tell me this isn't a better solution. I'm pressing one button and it's instant. I don't even have to think about it. It's just done and I just move on. Also, I really should mute all of these because if I press play accidentally, I'm gonna die. On top of this inherent delay, the Stream Deck also has no inbuilt way to move or resize windows, has no way to move the mouse to predetermined locations, doesn't let you, then click the mouse or stuff like that. Granted, the Stream Deck does have a third-party, add-on in the store that lets you move and resize windows, but it's kind of finicky, and sometimes it doesn't like to, latch onto windows, and it can sometimes take a long time, and it's really weird. And while moving windows isn't very important in, say, the context of editing, it is very important in the context of me opening all the programs that I require for my stream, which is another thing that I moved all of the stuff to AutoHotKey for. As on the Stream Deck, while it did open everything, it was quite slow. I couldn't move windows efficiently to the right places. Sometimes it would just not latch onto stuff, and I would just end up spending more time fixing its mistakes anyway. So let's go over my stream opening script. I'm going to create another video that I'll link in the description that will probably just be unlisted, that will go over most, if not all, of the scripts that I use in my main script file. But in this video, we're going to take a look at just my opening stream script, as it's quite extensive, and it can give you quite a basic understanding of what you can do in AutoHotKey that might be helpful for you. This might get the inspiration flowing. So let me just zoom in so you can actually see stuff, I suppose. So right off the bat, we have a if win not active AHK exe Adobe Premiere Pro. This line right here is basically just saying this can happen if Premiere isn't active. And that is so that in Premiere, I can still use the F15 key because I need it. And it would be really annoying to press the F15 key in Premiere and then have my whole stream start up. So that's what this line is for. You can get this information, by the way, with a program called Windows Spy, which is auto-installed alongside AutoHotKey. You'll see it has the same icon. And then basically when you click on any window, it will give you a class, it'll give you an exe, and it'll give you an ID. So in our case, we just need the exe, and that's just how you would put that there. Anything in this dark green color that you see, you don't really have to pay attention to. These are just comments. This is to help either the coder or anybody reading understand what's happening. I'm gonna mostly just be ignoring them in this case as I'm explaining it to you right now. But you can comment stuff out with a semicolon. That also works with lines of code. So if I were to do that, my script would now not open OBS. We don't want that. That would be silly. So first thing off the bat, what I do in my script is set win delay at 0. All this is doing
I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more, is making it so that when I move windows later on in the script, like here, they just happen instantly. Otherwise, you can set it to be slower, which there are probably use cases for that, but in the case of this, I just want everything to be instant. So then I have a run, and then I have a link to a shortcut for OBS. The reason it's a shortcut here is just because I need OBS and my script to be on the same level of like elevation. And at the time, I didn't know how to run a program in AutoHotKey elevated like this, by the way. Or it would pull up the, you know, the dialogue, be like, are you sure you want to run this program? Which is just annoying. And they need to be on the same level of elevation, otherwise AutoHotKey can't interact with it. So anyway, that's what that is. Also, before I get too far into this, if my indentation looks stupid, please keep in mind this is just made for me. I'm not a programmer, all right? This just lets me read it easier. That's all. But anyway, we're saying if when exists OBS. So we're saying if OBS exists, the program is open, activate it. Otherwise, wait for it and then activate it. Then once it opens up, we do a little sleep here for 2.5 seconds. This is important because for whatever reason, if you try to interact with OBS straight away, it will crash. So that's cool. Apparently we're too fast. Then what we're doing is we're inputting a set of commands to make sure that the profile selected is the correct profile for my main stream, because I also stream on my bot account. This is just an extra layer to make sure I don't go live on the wrong account. So it's opening up the Alt menu, which you're probably aware of if you've ever accidentally pressed Alt in most programs, and then pressing P to open the profile menu, and then just basically menuing down to the correct one. Then after that, we just do another sleep to make sure that, you know, OBS hasn't died while changing the profile. Then I have a win move. In most scenarios, this doesn't really matter and doesn't really do anything, but because for my alt account, I use stream elements so that I can have a separate bot to my main stream. Stream elements OBS, for whatever reason, or I guess that OBS live plugin or whatever, makes the minimum width that OBS can be wider for some reason. It's really odd. So the way that I have OBS set up on my Windows, it's just, it gets too wide if I alt stream. So this is just basically making sure that it's in the right position and the right width. But then we activate OBS again, just in case Windows has lost it. And then this part of the script is just tabbing through the menus to set some custom hotkeys for a certain plugin that I use in OBS, because at the moment the plugin has a bug where every time you close OBS, it forgets its hotkeys. It's really stupid. So that's why I just have this separated out. This will not be here forever, hopefully, if they ever fix it. But if not, that's there. So yeah, I have to tab 53 times in that. That's real fun. But anyway, once that's done, we'll run Firefox with a certain URL. This is a certain page in the All Moons route. Then it will wait for Firefox to exist, then activate it, same as OBS. Then it will wait a second, as sometimes interacting with Firefox straight away after you've opened it will be similar to OBS. It'll just derp out and it'll lose itself. Then we open up another tab. This is my dashboard on Twitch. And then we wait 9 seconds. This is because if both tabs on Firefox don't load in before I start giving it inputs, it can break itself. It's really stupid. Programs are really stupid, and sometimes you have to find weird roundabout ways of fixing it. Unfortunately, I wouldn't do this if I didn't have to, but I do. And then, this is actually quite redundant. I probably don't need this. I could probably change this to a when activate instead of an if exist. That's interesting. I've probably just copy pasted this code. But anyway, it's then just activating it again. And if it can't activate it, it's doing this extra layer. I took this from Taran from LTT. This is basically just a deeper way of grabbing Firefox and bringing it to the foreground, because sometimes activating Firefox doesn't actually activate it. It's really annoying. But anyway, after that, we're just setting a delay between every one of our inputs, because if you try to input through Firefox's menu too fast, it doesn't work. There's a theme going on here. So we add a little bit of delay between our send inputs here. It should be noted send and send input are two different things. Send, you can add delay to, like this. This adds 100 milliseconds, by the way. Send input will not. You cannot delay these. These are instant no matter what. So that's why these are sends. We're doing Alt-D to open up the Alt menu again. We're just tabbing through. Basically, this is separating the two tabs that I have. Because to my understanding, there isn't a way to just do it with a button, so I have to tab through the menus and do it. Then we're just moving both of those tabs into the position that I want on my screen. And then there's just a long list of running programs. All of these are all the things that I need for my stream. So it'll just run through them all. It'll open them all. It'll move Discord into the position that I want it in. And then we have some more logic here with a program that I use for my channel point redemptions. It waits for it to open. Then it moves my mouse to a very specific spot in its window to then click the start button on it. I can show that here. So it's basically just moving to this position here and then clicking the start button, which is important because I need that to work. Otherwise, my redemptions don't work properly. If I bring back open Window Spy, by the way, this window is very important. You'll notice that there are screen positions, window positions, and client positions. I don't really know what that is. Screen is basically just referring to your entire screen, of course. You know, up in the top left is 0, 0. This is the corner of that screen, then all the other pixel coordinates that I have going on. Window will be just for the program that you currently have selected. And this is important so that no matter what scaling you have it set to, the pixel coordinates will still be the same. So you'll see at the top left of Notepad++, its window coordinates are still basically 0, 0 if I got in the right place, right? So that's why I use that, just in case I move Docker at any point and its opening position isn't exactly the same. And then I just send through a click input to press that button. Then I wait a second for that to happen because it can be a bit slow. And then I run the other program that my brother gave me for my channel point redemption. I wait for that to open, activate it, then I send some inputs, and then I just run one last program. And then that's it. We're ready to go. I'll have a video showing just what that looks like in person happening at the moment. So it's very cool to see this code come to life and do exactly what I need it to do on any given day. This stuff saves me so much time at the beginning of every stream. If I didn't have this stuff, I would be absolutely forgetting programs every single time I went live without fail. There's not a doubt in my mind that I would mess stuff up. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We've gone over how you can speed up some edits with some fancy macros that, well, you will have access to if you check out the GitHub. Gone over how keyboard shortcuts can be really important and can help speed up your workflow. And we've gone over some basics in AutoHotKey to help inspire you to create something cool. You might have hit the end of this video and you might be thinking to yourself, wow, Tumshi really has lost the plot. And you know what? You're right. And you might not do anything with this video, and no one might watch this video, and that's fine. But I really wanted to make this video. I really hope you had a lot of fun. And if any of you guys do anything cool with AutoHotKey, I would love to hear about it down in the description. Bonus points if you keep a running GitHub as well, so people can benefit off of it as well. But other than that, thank you to those that made it this far in the video. Greatly appreciated. Do consider checking out the Patreon, as you guys over there are what helped me make these passion projects. Wouldn't be able to do them without you. Those Patreons include, of course, Goat, Blue, Iwa, Drunkable, King, Yason, Natasha, V, and Georgie. Much, much love. Thank you for letting me ramble about AutoHotKey and scripting for way too long. And I'll see you guys in the next video.